plane.
Oh, above us is the plane. Call him and see.
The plane.
That's where she came back to.
You excited?
So I'm just going to stop now so that I can talk, because otherwise if I break if I talk and I'm doing it, it's not. But
Too much
he's so different, because if only we had recorded what we did before. But what we did is we let him come back and forth and back and forth, and we did it without the harness on. Then we put the harness on him, and he felt the energy change within his body. He felt different, and he did his shake off so he could get used to the new energy flow, because this is what they do when they're doing a shake off. They're getting used to this new energy flow, the new posture, the new feeling that's within them. And then he was coming back and forth, and then I was able to do the acceptance technique, because he put his bum here, and so I just did a bit of the acceptance technique, not even for long. We probably could have counted to 5 maybe, do you think? And then I stopped, and then he's like standing, not moving anywhere. Then he ran round and he wanted to play this tug game. And of course, usually in the past, in traditional dog training, you've been told that if you let them win as such, well, the fact we're using the word win is enough, isn't it? But the fact, if he takes it, that's not necessarily a good thing. But actually he needed that then, because he was interacting with my energy. He was giving, wanting to express his energy. And then I said, it's okay, I'm not going to take this. I'm not prey to you. I'm not mean to you. I'm not, how do we describe? But it's like you give them the trust almost, and it changes the magnetic polarity between you and the dog, because the dog has this magnetic polarity. It's too much talking. This dog is movement, sound, even my voice getting louder and more excited about what I'm telling you. He can feel the change in us. So what did I do next? So we allowed him to sit under the chair behind Susanna here, and then he came out of his own accord, and he put his back right up to me. He's moved slightly away now. So I made an energy space for him, very slowly, moving my hands very slowly. I started with this hand, got the grounding space, got the channel of light between me and down into the earth. And then I introduced this hand. Now, even introducing this hand at first, he made a little bit of grumble, didn't he? And then in the end, I was able to do it. And all I did is hold space with the intention that he is able to ground his energy into earth and able to be still and feel safe to be still, because this dog, he might appear crazy, uncontrolled, whatever the words we would use, aggressive even, because we know he is often like that if you handle him in the wrong way, or in a way that makes him feel like he is a prey, and I'm like after him in some way. Anything like that, he's so highly sensitive that he's not grounding his energy flow. He's getting full of charge of emotion. And we needed to let him ground it. And it was interesting, because when he came out from the chair, and he was here before I started the bubble even, somebody pulled up over there, and he didn't change at all. He sort of moved a bit and that was it, but usually he'd be up, woofing, running over there. So yeah, and right now he's probably the most chilled he's been. But the idea is we get him into this state of being as often as possible, and it's not necessarily about doing, it's getting him into the being. And it is, in a way, it is having the confidence to trust that if you do a tiny bit of something, a tiny bit of change within them, a tiny bit of postural change, a tiny bit of being still, grounded, changing their polarity is too much for them sometimes. So this tiny bit you do has a bigger impact than trying to do loads of stuff to him. I mean, we've got our bowls here, we've got probably essential oils hanging around, we've got everything around us. We could be using all the doing, but just this bit of getting his polarity back into balance is what he needs. One of the things that we teach in Canine Flow is that dogs have this need to balance the magnetic polarity, and this is why they do half the stuff they do, because they are trying to balance polarity all the time. They feel this magnetic polarity in a totally different way to us humans who are up here, not in our magnetic hearts. And it's just, we have to strip away all the conditioning that we have had in the way dogs have been described to us as mental beings, as we try to get their intelligence to be the primary focus, the thinking, and they're not, they're feeling this electromagnetic energy, and they're trying to balance it, and they're here to do that for humanity, and we spend the whole time limiting them and training them out of it. You know, because we suddenly go into our fears when we see them in this uncontrollable, description-wise, uncontrollable manner, an ungrounded, unfocused manner. So yeah, it's this has certainly been a little lesson in the less you do. Okay, even moving my arm and looking at him too much, so interesting. But he could walk away if he wanted to.
Yeah, exactly.
He wants to be within the bubble I've created.
Definitely.
But he doesn't want, as soon as my heart gets excited, or when I move my arm back just then, I would have revealed my heart magnetic energy a bit more. Any kind of excitement like that is too much, and at the moment we're quite connected, so it's quite good he's letting me talk this much.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Let's stop the video and we'll... Hopefully we can see him in the video now. So he's really shifting his bum a bit now. He is not a dog that any of us are looking at as a comfortable dog, okay? But compared to what he was, and this is interesting because what you're seeing might look nothing, but he has probably never been this magnetically balanced before. His polarities probably haven't been this balanced for a long time. And he could walk away. He's not on anything. He has a harness on and a lead, but nobody is holding it. He could go away any time he wanted. And we're just letting him process, not mentally at all, but letting him process feeling like this. So he's getting used to this feeling that he now has, where he can ground into planet Earth. His energies are shifting in his body. A lot of the time when we do this work with them, you will do something, a dog that is maybe not the same as him, for instance, and you would start, and they're quite happy for you to work on them, and they immediately start licking around the groin area. You must have seen this before, because the energy polarities are shifting and the flow of Kundalini is changing. So, and we just presume so much that they should know when it's okay to feel safe and still and in balance, that they should know that, and that if we just get them there, then they'll be fine. But I don't think that's the case at all. They're too sensitive, and they're not thinking. They're not like, oh yes, okay, this is what I was thinking about last week. This is the enlightenment I wanted to reach. You know, they're not like us in that way. They just feel completely different. So it's interesting. I mean, he's much more down now. And what were you saying about the planes?
He barks at planes and helicopters.
He barks at planes and helicopters.
And generally in the garden, if he hears a car or the window cleaner or the kids playing, he'll run and he'll bark. So to lie down and let a plane come across and not react is something I've never seen him do.
Wow, so you've never seen him not react
I've
to
never
the
seen
plane?
him like this in the garden at all.
Not even once?
No.
Wow.
And how old is he now?
I don't know whether he's 7.
Is he 7? Well, he's a rescue dog, so we don't
Yeah.
exactly know. Mm.
It's interesting.
So many Jack Russells are like this. I mean, I know other
He's very
breeds as well.
sensitive. He is sensitive.
You know, and I think they're actually way more sensitive than
Do-
what we believe that they are. We go on.
I'm just, the likes of arthritis, the saying that causes sound sensitivity now.
Yeah. So there's
it's
so
more aware.
basically, the sound sensitivity is created by the unbalanced polarities, by the inability to ground, by the stuck charge, electrical charge in their body, electromagnetic charge. It's the sound sensitivity is linked to their state of being. Now, obviously, if they've got pain as well, then their state of being is much more sensitive in that respect. Their proprioception's not in a balanced state, so they feel vulnerable, and they feel. And this isn't a mental thing, it's a feeling. We have to strip away that the dog is thinking that it's vulnerable. It's not thinking it, it just feels it. And on a proprioceptive level, flight is compromised. So the nervous system, which is kind of like a feedback mechanism, just like your eyes are feedback mechanism for what you see and your ears are for what you hear, the proprioception as a sense, it is a sense, its body part is the nervous system. So any part of the nervous system, far too excited and waving my hands,
Is he
any
still
part
in the
of the
bubble with you,
nervous
though? Is that-
system,
'cause
yes.
You can't move.
No, it gives the feedback that flight's compromised, and when you get that because the dog is tense or the dog is in pain, then they feel more vulnerable, and then sound sensitivity starts to come. It can also be linked in with the kidneys. There's so many different layers of this, and there's another plane going over at the moment, because kidneys and sound sensitivity often go together. In nice TCM, not the TCM they use animal parts obviously, but the TCM that we appreciate as energy flow, that can also be linked as well, but also because the cortisol, the adrenaline, all these things are linked in next to the kidneys. It's all that part of the body, and the tension in the hindquarters and the toxicity that will come in the body, and if he's dry food fed, I don't know, but
Raw
if
fed,
he
no.
is, there will be hydration issues, essential fatty acid hydration, and lipid and water hydration will be linked in as well. I'm glad that this is still videoing. So we're not going to do a lot more with him at the moment,
It would
because
be too
what I'm going to
overwhelming,
do is try and sort of shift our connection a little bit by moving my physical body, because I literally haven't moved my position at all since I started this, and we'll see what he does. So I'm putting this leg down first, it's furthest one away from him. Oh, the relief. And I'm just going to shift my base chakra that way, so that it's not in the same line as him. Let's see what he does. I might even actually sit up on this chair so that I'm totally not in that bubble with him. And now he's looking round at me. Oh, and he has been aggressive to people, sort of, but not. You see, when it happened earlier, when we first got here, it was more, I would have said, frustration, and what they want to do is give you their energy, and of course they're using their mouth, because this is the most emotional part of their body. It's the biggest energy part that they have to give their energy.
Down again.
Oh, now he's laid down. Mind you, I've got back down. Anyway, interesting.
Yeah,
Oh,
very
interesting.
I just did that clap without meaning to, and he never.
Yeah.
Okay. So we were just mentioning that very often dogs that have this kind of behaviour that you saw before, this is labelled as prey drive, too much prey drive. And whilst there is some truth in that, that doesn't labelling in that way doesn't and what often happens is with the training methods would then be limiting even more. They would end up limiting the dog. So he needs to be be in this state as often as possible, and he needs the space. So space is so important for him right now. He just needs to be left to be like this. And what happens is we want something to do in the situation to make us feel better, to us feel less judged by other dog walkers or dog owners or whoever is happening to walk by, or even ourselves, because we're in this state of I'm not good enough so flipping much, and it's just not what our guides want for us. It's not what we're here on planet Earth to feel, this I'm not good enough. And when a dog is like that, they're here to show us that we are, really. That's the irony, and it brings that up for us. So all these things need addressing, because that's what creates the shift between the owner and the dog. And when the dog's energetic job, if you like, of coming here to show us and show the owner that they are good enough, when that lands, that shifts the behaviour as well. It's not the only thing that shifts the behaviour, but it's a big part of it. Oh, he's going to sleep, is he? Oh, he's just wait. I just moved.
I think he was alright, lovely.
So, were you going to ask something?
Sorry.
Were you going to ask something? I can't remember.
I asked about the about holding the space and creating the bubble.
Oh yes.
Like, how do you, if you set any?
I
like,
think-
how do you set the intention?
I think it's kind of personal the way that I do it. You would probably find your own way.
All right.
But I kind of create a pillar of light between, like right through me down into planet Earth, and I create the space energetically with my hands. So I could create a space, and then sound sensitivity starts to come. It can also be linked in with the kidneys. There's so many different layers of this, and there's another plane going over at the moment, because kidneys and sound sensitivity often go together in nice TCM, not the TCM they use animal parts obviously, but the TCM that we appreciate as energy flow. That can also be linked as well, but also because the cortisol, the adrenaline, all these things are linked in next to the kidneys. It's all that part of the body, and the tension in the hindquarters and the toxicity that will come in the body. And if he's dry food fed, I don't know, but if he is, there will be hydration issues, essential fatty acid hydration, and lipid and water hydration will be linked in as well. I'm glad that this is still videoing.
Yeah.
So we're not.
Mhm.
So can we see him as well now? Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I feel like he doesn't want us to do the spiral work that we do, because that would be next level change for him, and it is too much. So what we're going to do is just sit, maybe I will sit back and we will see when he gets up. And if he gets up, for instance, and he's quite grounded to begin with, and he's pottering, and he'll probably do some sniffing, he might need the loo because the flow starts to come. So energy shifts will have happened as well in his meridian lines. So, but the point is, if he now goes back to this, if he comes out of this and he goes back to this original behaviours of the not being grounded, the shifting continuously, the out of his body focus rather than the internal focus, the constant need to give you energy all the time. Why can I give you my energy? All this, the barking he was doing. I tried to think of all the things he was doing before. If he goes back to that, it doesn't mean that this hasn't worked or that this hasn't done anything. This needs to be done more regularly. And it's not because we're trying to get him into this state, it's because we're trying to get his flow going again. We're trying to polarity balance him so that he will generally go through life in a better state of being. And sometimes it does happen after a couple of sessions. Sometimes it can happen that way. Other times the dog needs to be in that situation, in that state of being like he is now for many times before. But what is a key factor, and we did mention it sort of in the video from the other direction, is the owner. So when the owner has that energy shift, when that contribution to the dog needing to be ground and being in the state of being that he's got an electrical magnetic charge, when that shifts, that will also change the dog's behaviour as well. So, you know, it can be very easy to be sort of like, oh, well, I'm not that kind of person, so you can't say my dog is my mirror because I don't do all those things that the dog was doing. And, you know, so that, but what goes on subconsciously for the owner will be contributing to how the dog is. 100% it will be. We don't, at the point of subconscious is you don't know what's in there. As soon as you're aware of it, it's conscious, you know. So you cannot say ever, I haven't got anything going on that could be affecting the dog, because your subconscious, you know, when everyone's seen that iceberg thing with the tip of the iceberg and then the rest is under the water, that's like 90% of you. You know, there will be something, and the dogs are here to show us where we might have that, and we don't need to analyze that really. It will come to us. This is what happens. We try to analyze, oh, what could be wrong with me, immediately going back into I'm not good enough, which is what the dogs have come to shift us away from. So it's so interesting. They open our hearts just by being with us, and show what needs to be released, and the heart walls that need to come down. Just by being with us. And it isn't that there's something wrong with us and that we are consciously doing anything wrong. It's something subconscious that is contributing to how they act on a daily basis and how their general state of being is. And when you shift your state of being and work with the dog in the way that we do with Canine Flow, that's when you get the changes will happen in the more long-term fashion. Oh, he's woken up. He's like, yes, she's explained the lesson. I do not need to be asleep anymore.
I don't need to add anything.
Yes.
That's interesting.
But he didn't run off down the garden.
No.
I just kind of changed the energy. I came away from him, and that. Oh, interesting. It's like so much is happening now, just to show us that he's not in such a state of being anymore.
It's very interesting.
Such a gorgeous boy.
It's like he wanted to come back to what his habit was, but then he kind of remained like remembered. Oh, I can do something differently. I mean, he felt.
Well, that's quite a big thing to happen. We haven't had an alarm go off since we've been
He
here.
keeps looking back at me all the time.
It's okay.
No, I'm just saying, it's funny, isn't it? That he's like, did you hear that?
Yeah, it's
And now he's
amazing.
laid down.
Wow,
Yeah,
this is amazing.
it's really cool, isn't it? Oh, now he's wonderful. He's stretching his jaw out. That is fantastic.
Good lad.
That's really interesting, because now when it was on before the alarm and everything, and he would have built that charge, and it just goes to show that a lot of it's around his TFJ, around his ears, around his neck, and then when the noise went again, he stretched that out. He was aware that it's there, and see now he's doing this. It's really interesting to see, but this is amazing. His
Wow,
owner won't believe this.
it's good we have
I
some
don't believe
proof.
You don't believe
I don't
It's
believe
good we have some proof.
I've never seen him so calm, so quiet.
And he just,
So relaxed.
he didn't even need he didn't need like a reminder, kind of reminder. Let's call it. He just did it himself.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I will come back to this.
And he's still got his legs tucked under, so he's ready to move if he wants to. So we've got to be aware that this is only probably the first time in his life, except maybe when he was born or something, that he has felt calm enough and still enough inside him, and his feeling in his body has been polarity balanced. And he could very well
He's watching
leap
your
up
toes.
and run and do it again, but it doesn't mean that it hasn't worked. It just means that he needs more of this feeling, and he needs to get used to it.
We get some helpers outside.
You're so good, you are. You're such a beautiful boy. I love you so much, I do.
Wow, this is amazing.
And he's having his little kick about.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. So adorable, isn't it?